season 3 of Star Trek Picard, Steve. Now, um, I'll say up front, I loved it. Like, being a fan of the original Next Generation show and basically 90s Trek, which was basically what you'd call it the second wave of Star Trek after the original series. And the thing that just blew my mind with this season 3 is that, and I'll say it in a bit more detail in a minute, is that the showrunner this season clearly understood the source material, because the first 2 seasons of Picard had their detractors. I thought they were okay, but they weren't what you would call Star Trek, I would say. It was just a science fiction show that just happened to have Picard in it. And you had to take it for what it was. If you were expecting, like that sort of traditional Star Trek type feel and vibe, it just wasn't there. And so they come in with season 3, and it effectively is another season of the Next Generation. So, but it's more than that, because they've got the bigger budget and the more resources and all of that, like modern television does. It kind of serves as almost 2 Next Generation movies, and ironically, 2 Next Generation movies that were probably better than the movies they already made. Um, and that's the bit that, and like in more context too, like we've been speaking the last couple of weeks about various different franchises and, Star Wars, Avatar and whatnot, and how they've been, like, to me anyway, disappointing, because they don't quite recapture the notion of what the source material is about, Star Wars in particular. And this idea that the people that are starting to come into these things, they're a generation or 2 after the original creator has kind of left the thing, and there's like a disconnect, because they're not really bringing to it something that is going to perpetuate the franchise in the spirit of which it was created. Star Trek actually did suffer from this. The modern Star Trek on TV started again in 2017, and the shows that have been coming out since then have been suffering similar things, with some exceptions, but they have been suffering a similar fate. But this particular season felt like, the inmate got control of the asylum and was able to actually punch out something that the fans would truly want to see. And it's just encouraging to know that it can be done, if you know what I mean.
Oh, look, this is fantastic news, Ben. Next Gen, I've always thought is probably some of the pinnacle of television sci-fi. And, who could ever say that there's been a better captain than Picard? Whichever Star Trek series or franchise or movie that you like, Picard's always been the best captain. And that's because Next Gen had the best stories. There was always a philosophical or ethical question in that, and each episode was about unpicking that, but unpicking it and really giving ourselves a perspective on humanity, how we probably should live if we were out there amongst the stars meeting, new species, but also gives us a perspective on how we might improve the way we live on Earth today. And it's great to hear now, to hear you say that the current series really goes back to its roots and has that essence, which is now a combination of probably the advance in television or content streaming that we've seen over the last 10 years, where so many good scripts and so many good series come out each year, and the production quality now is just exceptional. And, you don't need to go to a cinema anymore to see this. They can make series that are every bit as good as what we used to think you could only appreciate on the silver screen. So it's fantastic. And I think, this is probably, for me, this is a high point in content production, and it's a high point in science fiction.
Mm. The only thing that I feel maybe a little bit sad about is that maybe this is this was the one shot at at the dartboard and they got it, and it might not happen again. Let's hope that that they do bring it again. Just some final points on it though is that it feels like the proper send off that crew didn't get. Now they did have a good ending to the show, but the movies kind of petered out. And the last time that we saw the crew on screen together, that film Nemesis was really, I was like really upset after I finished watching that in the cinema, because I just thought it was such a lackluster entry, and that was it. That was, we never saw them again until basically now with this current season. And it feels like, yeah, and in listening to some of the interviews with the showrunner, he basically said, I want to give him the send off that they never got. That was his mantra for the going into the show, and I thought great, and I think he did it successfully. And for anyone, I've complained about fan servicing in the past with other shows and franchises. This season is full of them. There's a truckload of fan service in there, but they were clever enough to tie in the fan service into the actual new plot that they're telling in this season. So instead of it being just a gratuitous moment of an old character coming back, or a scenario or something that you remember from the show just being there for the hell of it, so you can go, oh yeah, I remember that. Instead of that, it's like, it's there, you have that experience, but then it's also tying into and advancing the story. That's the thing I think that's missing from a lot of the fan servicing in some of these other franchises. Like, there hasn't been that extra level of care taken to inject that, okay, we are still telling a story here, but can we get this story to hang these moments off as well? And it seems like they were able to find that line and deliver all of that.
Oh, that's brilliant news. That's something I'd recommend everyone get out and watch.